Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello everyone, welcome to Healing the Spirit. I'm so grateful that you're here and I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. It's been a hot minute since I shared a conversation and this is a special one. My guest is Nisha Mody, who is a healer and a writer, and I invited Nisha because I've been really moved by her writings and her perspectives on the relationship between mothers and daughters. I know this can be a really challenging topic for many people, and Nisha is someone who talks about her own experiences candidly in a way that feels grounded, compassionate, and really nuanced. So let me introduce you to her by reading her bio. Nisha Mody, she, her, is a healer and writer who lives in Los Angeles on Tongva land. She supports her clients to actually like themselves instead of believing the lies ruminating in their head. She's currently writing a memoir about how her abusive marriage helped her learn the difference between escape and freedom. You can find her on Instagram at healinghypegirl and her website www.nishaland.com. Nisha also has a workshop coming up in collaboration with James Olivia Chu Hillman this Saturday, July 18th. It's called Navigating Tension and Connecting with Intimacy, a workshop for mothers and daughters. We talk about it during the conversation, and I invite you to check it out if this conversation resonates. Okay, here's my conversation with Nisha Mody. Welcome, Nisha. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited. I feel like this conversation is a few years in the works because even
Mm.
when I was riding in your car in LA, I already knew I wanted to have you on, and then
Aw,
timing and life, but
yeah.
here we are. Yeah, thank you for being
Yeah.
here.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you about everything. So I'm so
Yay.
excited to
I
see where
feel
this goes.
I feel very similarly. And you know, right after that trip to LA, I was actually listening to one of your conversations, one of the podcasts you're on,
Uh-huh.
and you were talking about the right angle cross of consciousness, which I think
Oh. Oh
both of us
yeah.
are because I also have that incarnation cross in my human
Right, I
design.
forgot you do. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I need to check that out again. I feel like I'm kind of in a new iteration of or version of myself or whatever you want to call it. And I'm
Mm,
like, it's always, I think, helpful to check certain things about like these different archetypal systems
for sure.
like to see how it's connecting to the new version of you. So thank you
Yeah,
for that reminder. But
yeah,
yeah, I think I'm cross of consciousness 3.
yes, yes. I think I'm one.
You're 1. Okay,
Yeah,
got
because
it.
I was born in March.
Right, so we're like opposite. I'm September,
Opposites.
so yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly. Um, I thought maybe that's a good place to start, Nisha. I'm curious if anything's coming up for you around that before you even introduce yourself and your work, but what feels alive for you about, you know, being born under the right angle cross of consciousness?
Yeah. So like I said, I do feel like I need to look at it again, but I do feel that what it told me was about like the collective consciousness,
Mm,
and my role in it. And I think what really stood out to me always about that, and about a lot of things in archetypal systems about me, and then we're both 3/5s too, right?
yes.
Is almost the lack of specificity in it.
Mm,
Um, I feel like I've always had this wound of like I need to know exactly the thing I need to do that's my passion, and and I feel like it really showed me that that isn't necessarily true. And
Mm,
the 3-5 is actually what really drew me to human design because I've had so many careers and so many pivots in my life that it validated that for me. That's what got me down the human design rabbit hole years ago. Then the cross of consciousness was just like the moment, like, oh yeah, that's where it all is coming to fruition.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I feel like I can't get more specific because now I'm like, oh, I haven't like looked at what that meant
yeah,
in a while. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Usually people talk about it as um people born under that specific incarnation cross
Mm-hmm.
help other people understand what to do, like how to propel forward by
Mm-hmm.
understanding their past better.
Oh, okay. Thank you
Or
for
at least
like,
that's kind of how I'm like
yeah,
conceptualizing
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a life coach. Like that's like literally what I do. And I would say that comes through my coaching as well as through my writing. I write memoir, so I think that by
Hmm.
going through my past, I'm talking about how I'm propelling my life forward, that
Yes.
transformations that I've made. And I'm like dabbling with fiction lately, like just in very noob um level, and I keep thinking about that too. Like I keep thinking about like intergenerational histories
Hmm.
and how those stories help us understand ourselves so we can know what we are here to do for that collective purpose. Um, so yeah, that totally tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to introduce people a little bit to who you are and what you do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Hi, my name is Nisha. I am a liberatory life coach and I'm a writer. I'm also a re-emerging speech language pathologist. This has
Very
been one of my
exciting.
careers. Yes, I am actually returning to the workplace after being full-time in my business for 5 years.
Hmm.
And I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't practiced in over 10 years, but yeah, I'm actually surprised. I never thought I'd want to go back. So that is one of my careers. I also used to be a librarian. And yeah, a lot of my coaching I notice focuses on, I say I'm a liberatory life coach. So I really want to work with people that struggle maybe on a personal level, but want to connect it to the systems that they are ensnared with,
Yeah.
that we can't really escape. Like we can't escape patriarchy. We can't escape our colonial reality, whether you have that direct history or not. Like it's still in the world.
Yes.
Really thinking about the interconnectedness. And so I connect that to the personal and the professional. I think the personal is professional. That's my hot take. So, yeah, that's a lot of what I work on as a coach. And I'm writing a memoir right now about how my abusive marriage really helped me learn the difference between escape and freedom.
Mm.
So, yeah. And
Whoa.
that's me. That's the stuff
Yeah.
I do. So, mix of the coaching and the writing and the speech language pathologizing.
Yeah.
um, which, I think is also connected, like just connecting with people and ideas. I have a third house stellium. I think that's also an important thing to talk about with Libra.
Mm.
And so that's very like writerly, very like everyday activities. And I really do think how about a lot of how the everyday things that happen in our lives build our lives,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it isn't just the big milestone moments. It's actually the everyday things. So yeah, and I have a Virgo sun and Sag moon.
Mm.
So they square too. So they really one's like about being precise and analytical, the other one's like zooming out and exploring. And then I have my Libra stellium in between there.
Mm.
And I really feel like the writing is what kind of releases a pressure valve between the tension between the two. It helps me
Right.
express what's happening and create a story,
Mm.
whether that's for myself or make meanings. So that's me.
Yeah. I'm noticing that we have that connection as well. That's another
Mm.
um chart connection that we have because we have a opening square moon, a sun and moon
Yes.
situation.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because I'm a Pisces
Oh.
sun, Gemini moon, so
Oh.
my sun moon aspect is also a an opening square. And earlier you dropped a bomb that I feel like we need to kind of go back to, which was the
Okay.
difference between escape and freedom.
Ah, yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot. As I've been writing my memoir, I'm like almost done with my first draft. And I've had a lot of um, like, what is my memoir about? Yes, it's about my abusive relationship. And I've had a lot of like questions, like, what question does this memoir answer? Because with memoir, it's not like an autobiography, it's like a specific slice of your life. And it needs to answer some type of question. If you think about any memoir you like, it is really answering a question. And one of the first questions that a mentor helped me come up with was this difference between escape and freedom, because and specifically speaking, I entered my marriage any romantic relationship in my 20s, like trying to escape my rigid family, especially
Mm,
my mom, who was very controlling. So I was like, I want to be with someone who's like cool and chill and a little more rebellious, but still has their stuff together. And, their family too also really mattered. And my ex-husband's family, I really loved them. They, I felt like a lot of stuff in my family like was way more complicated than it needed to be because of my mom's anxieties
mm,
and just so much more controlled, and his family wasn't like that. And I fell in love with all of it. And but really it was like an escape. I think one thing I've realized is like whatever wounds we have, like we do try to escape them because they keep hurting us. But
mm,
is that escape sometimes that escape can be something that does lead to a form of liberation within that context. Other times it's like me with my marriage, it was abusive. He was really cool and chill, but he was also very controlling in his own way. But I dismissed it for all the good stuff that I saw and perceived, and for feeling chosen as a woman, just like with the male gaze.
yeah.
Um, I dismissed it only to realize I was actually replicating those same patterns that I had as a child. So it wasn't freedom, it was actually purely an escape. But then what was my freedom was leaving the relationship and realizing I had choices and I don't have to, in my 20s, I still kind of felt like almost beholden to my parents in some way. But when I got divorced in my early 30s, I'm like, I could do whatever I want, actually, and I'm going to. And so
Yeah.
for me, that was the freedom that I was always really seeking. But I thought that the freedom would be in a man. I thought that freedom would be in marriage, and not having to be under my mom's rule.
Mm,
So yeah, that is specifically how it shows up. But like I said, I do have been thinking a lot as I'm writing the memoir about what part's escape and what part is freedom, and
mm,
what is their relationship to each other. Because I don't think it's just one or the other. I think
yeah.
there's actually a relationship between escape and freedom.
Yeah. 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 I think even hearing you speak about it, it makes me think about how even though that experience, especially the abuse part, was probably really not fun, but it
Mm.
did become a stepping stone towards
Yeah,
greater and greater freedom for you.
absolutely. And I always say I don't regret getting married. I really
Mm,
don't. Like, it's
mhm,
not something where I feel like I wasted my time with this guy,
mm.
or
Yeah.
because I think one thing for most of the things in my life is I always remind myself that that's where I was at that time. Like, no, if I knew what I knew now, would I have done different? Yeah, but I didn't. So how can I expect myself to
Yeah.
know that? And like, I think we're all on a path, right?
Right.
I did grow up Hindu, so I like do spiritually see the value of karma.
Mm,
I see the value of like what is this here to teach me? I'm not an expert on karma or anything, but I do think like what's the lesson here?
mm,
And I think that with all aspects of my life, even like my immediate family, like there's frustrations I still have with my immediate family, but um, I do ask myself, okay, well, what's the lesson for me here? And I think
yeah.
that that is very liberating itself, actually. And the lesson of my marriage was to see how I was repeating my own patterns, through a codependent relationship instead
Mm,
of looking at what my patterns actually were
Right.
and how it was showing up and how that can actually show up. And then, even though I learned so much from that marriage, it doesn't mean that like I was perfectly interdependent after that. I still had my moments, but I also went to therapy. I was doing a lot of like reflective work. I was working with mentors, reading lots of books. Like I was doing all these things, like connecting to my body, that I had never done, before. I just was like, okay, well, I'm just going to find a man and that's going to be the solution to my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, as you're speaking, I'm also thinking about how sometimes the only way to really see a pattern is to go through different iterations of them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like you can't really see the patterns until you move through. This is so 3-5 coded of us, by the way, to be having this conversation. But it's like it's making me
Just do
think
it
about
again.
yeah.
Keep doing it.
Yes. It's making me think about how in music, like I studied classical music and there was this form called the themes and variations. And
Uh-huh.
basically the idea is kind of like modern day remix, right? Like you would
Uh-huh.
take one pattern musically, and then you would continue to play with that pattern through different iterations, different keys, different tempo, right? And similarly, I think in life, often if you're walking the path of being someone who attempts to understand patterns, you can't really see the pattern until it shows up enough in your life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Two things came up to me when you first said like just repeating, you have to kind of repeat the patterns. I thought of like just like a twist of a kaleidoscope. You
Mm,
have the same material, but you just keep looking at things in a different way. And then actually when you were talking about the music part, I realized I used to play piano when I was very young. Um, I have some trauma around it because my mom made me quit and I really liked it.
yeah.
And one thing, there was like a song that I really liked and I was playing it and I pretty much felt that I had mastered it. So then I actually took sheet music and I did a very similar song, just like with different notes, like different, like up two lines type of thing, If it's not a C, it's an E or whatever. And I just created a different song, but with the same pattern of the song.
Mm, mhm.
And I was so proud of myself. And it just made me realize like how we explore art in that way, can explore art in that way too. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I'm sure there's like a word for what I just shared that you probably know, but musically, but I'm like, I don't know. I just like shifted it up two lines in the staff.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you basically transposed it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the word
yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And my teacher was like so impressed. I mean, I was like 8 or 9 or something, and I had just really started learning. And yeah, gotta try the pattern again, see how it sounds, and that way it was a good thing, not like the hurtful patterns. But
Yes.
yeah, but I mean, we do it with all, it doesn't have to be quote unquote good or bad. It could be anything. And
Yeah.
because that really is how you learn. And hopefully with the harmful parts, we realize, okay, this keeps hurting me. So I do need to like shift this pattern and recognize the pattern first, right? Like, because I think lots of times it's so unconscious and subconscious most of the time until we awaken to it.
Right. Right. And in the moment, we can't always know which patterns are actually harmful either, because sometimes it's not the pattern itself that's harmful, but it's all the things that get caught in it.
Mm,
Like there's sometimes a pattern that's going on that is like the way I see it is like that pattern underneath it, there's a lot of other energies or maybe even beliefs that lead to the thing that actually like harms us, you know? Like for example, I think it's
mm,
very
mhm.
let me see if I even want to go here because I feel like this is kind of a big thing. Let me see if I can find a good example. I feel like people pleasing is one of those things that I'm always kind of working through and looking at because there is something inherently kind of confusing about it, Nisha. Like, I feel like with people
Mm,
pleasing, it's like, is this people pleasing or is this simply recognizing that there's flow and exchange between different people?
yeah,
Right? And it's like, I think the subtlety, it's so subtle. The difference is so subtle. And
yeah.
it requires a lot of honesty and maturity. And what was once really honest and authentic and true to you at a different point could be a people pleasing thing, you know? like as you get older. Like I think
Yeah.
about the version of myself when I was 21, and there were things that I did then that was very much in flow with my level of consciousness at that time,
Yeah.
with my maturity, but it's not true now.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
I think is kind of there's something challenging about that because it's dynamic.
Yeah. It is dynamic. It's dynamic and it's relational, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I know what you mean about that, right? I know what you mean about that. First, just talking about there's the pattern, but what's underlying beneath it that
Mm,
like what do we believe about ourselves? What have we been told about like power and authority? Who has power and authority? For us to like believe them. Um, like maybe there's someone who says something and we're like, no, that's wrong. But then
mm,
there's someone who has a certain power or authority that can be very subtle. It doesn't have to be like, this is my boss, this is my parent. It could be even a racial dynamic between friends potentially, or a gender dynamic,
right.
um, an ability dynamic. You know, there can be so many different dynamics that can create that behavior. Um, And it's also like, is it people pleasing or is it me like just being happy about a compliment someone gave me? Or, like
Hmm.
I'm not like saying, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's great because I'm people pleasing, but it comes from a genuine feeling.
Totally.
Um, yeah, but I know I'm hearing what you're saying. It's like there's the pattern, but it's like what is creating the pattern? What are the thoughts? What are the like actual like trauma responses that keep it going? Because the pattern is how it plays out, right? How it manifests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. So going back to your story, the one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, Nisha, is because you recently announced this workshop with
Hmm.
James Olivia Chu, and I immediately was very struck by the topic because you were
Hmm.
talking about mother-daughter relationship, and the title of your workshop is Navigating Tension and Connecting with Intimacy, which I thought
Hmm.
was such an incredible title because um, I wonder if you could speak more to that connection between tension and intimacy, and especially in relationship to mother-daughter relationships. And I'm also,
Yeah.
one last thing I'll add here is I feel like I got curious, like audience Jonathan got curious when you were telling your story, because after you left your marriage, I wonder how that helped you see and heal different patterns with your mom.
Oh, that is exactly what happened. You hit
Yeah.
it on the head. Yeah. So, yeah, we worked. James, Olivia, and I worked together on like the title. We're like, what should we call it? And we just kind of kept coming back to navigating tension and connecting with intimacy, because I think in so many mother-daughter relationships, like both the mother and daughter wanted to be an intimate relationship, but there is a power differential. Like your mom births you,
Mhm.
if that is your biological mom, cares for you, nurtures you. They're responsible for you, you know. They're your parent, and especially as a child who's not matured into an adult, like they are doing things for you that you don't know how to do for yourself, right? And I
Right.
think in a mother-daughter, relationship specifically, it's like you're both under you know, the realm of patriarchy. So you're both navigating in the rise of like feminism, right? You're both navigating expectations put on you by your parents, your elders, and society as time is moving on and things are happening different policy wise in the world, and women are able to do more. Like I got more education than my mom because I could, and um, my mom went to art school and she really liked art school, but it was also like the cheapest school that her parents could afford too,
Right.
so there's something there.
Right.
So I think that in the male gaze, having that intimacy with your mother is so important, but it could be also so hard because for me, it's like I was always trying to individuate from my
Mm.
mom, and she was always trying to control or like make it perfect. My mom is an eldest daughter Capricorn, y'all, so let's just like put that out there. She's the oldest of four sisters, pretty much all of which her sisters are like, "Oh yeah, your mom's a perfectionist." Like yeah,
Mm.
like I have validation from that. It's not like something that happened later in life. And she's a Capricorn, so it's just like the iron fist. And the mom, she's very strong-willed, I should say. My mom has a
Mm.
very strong will.
Yeah.
Um, and I think navigating tension and connecting with intimacy, like those are the two things that are happening in so many mother-daughter relationships. There's this tension, but we want to be close.
Mm.
Um, and we just can't get there because those old patterns, like from, when you were such a child, like a child, haven't necessarily matured and you're
Mm.
not aware of them. So you keep like coming into this, like the same arguments, the same stories, um, until you don't, and for me, like I said, I feel like my marriage showed me, and I have like specific notes like from my therapist about how I realized like in the process of like leaving him how I really went from one person who controlled me to another, and it's that idea of the well, I'll share this example. When I left, when our divorce was final, I got my own apartment.
Mm.
I was like so excited. I got my furniture off Craigslist, and I just felt really good. And I sat on the couch and I had everything in place. I had my TV, I had my art the way I wanted to, not like, like the way my ex-husband might or whatever. I had everything there. It felt really good. But then I sat on my couch and I was actually like kind of bored. And I didn't realize till years later that I, for once, wasn't in hypervigilance
Whoa.
from what my mom might think, or if she's going to call and bother me, to what my husband walking on eggshells around both of them. I was always walking on eggshells around both of them. I'm still sometimes walk around. I don't walk on eggshells nearly as much around my mom because I handle things differently, and those same stories don't repeat as often. They do
Mm.
come up sometimes, but I know I have much greater awareness. But I didn't have the chaos to that I was familiar with that I kept returning to.
Yeah.
So that's the pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I met James Olivia, we were doing these relational skills. I was in one of their programs, and um, the skills are empathy, empathic listening, congruence, and unconditional positive regard. This was created by Carl Rogers and Ernie Meadows. And we had just started like learning it, and I was like, I want to do unconditional positive regard with my mom. And when I say do, meaning role play it. So James Olivia, who also has an Asian mother, was like, oh, I got this. And I was like, okay, cool. This is perfect. We role played, and then not even halfway through, they paused me. They're like, Nisha, do you want to relate to your mom right now?
Mm.
And I said, no, I don't. They're like, then stop. Stop
Whoa.
trying. Yeah. And I was like,
Whoa.
oh. And I just realized how much I kept trying to like force things,
Mm.
force us through people pleasing, through not listening to my own congruence. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to work this out. And actually knowing that and stopping helps me actually connect with her because I'm listening to my truth, you know?
Right.
And that was like revolutionary for me
Wow.
because this whole time I thought I kept needed to fix it. And,
Mm.
ironically, that's what my mom's always trying to do, fix and control. And it came into my awareness that, oh, hey, that's also, she wants to change me. I want to change her.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're both adults. Yes, she's still my mom, but like, I need to accept her for who she is because then the story is she's wrong and I'm right.
Right.
And I think that's the tension that prevents us from intimacy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially if two people are doing that to each other,
Yeah.
then there's no connection that could happen.
Yeah. There's no
And
connection. Yeah.
right, with no connection, there's no intimacy. Yeah, because you can't see one another. You're just like interacting with like how the gap between the person in front of you and what you want them to be or what you
Yes.
think they should be, right? Hmm.
Yeah, who you want them to be for sure, and because who you think they should be is someone who is aligned with your preferences.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that
It's
was
yeah.
transformational. And then I thought about that with a lot of my relationships. I was like, oh, how much am I trying to do this with everybody?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
my ex-husband, I did that with him. I absolutely wanted him to be different. And, I realized eventually my part in that. It's not like I say abusive marriage, it absolutely was, but it's not like I didn't have a part. I mean, first of all, I entered it. If I knew then what I know now, I would not even have entered a relationship like that. But I did. And so what was my role in like continuing that dynamic with him,
Right.
and wanting to him to be different. And I think it's that idea that a lot of women fall into in heterosexual relationships. Like, I believed in his potential. It's like, but this is who he is right now. And I need to actually accept that?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things come to my mind. The first one is I think what you described in terms of what's helped you heal that pattern with your mom and actually have some level of intimacy with her, or maybe more accurately, have more intimacy with yourself that then leads to an intimacy with her. I feel like that
Mm.
was a very similar thing that happened with me and my relationship to my dad, actually. Yeah,
Really?
because I feel like with me and my parents, there were different sets of, let's just say, challenges
Sure.
with each of them. But with my dad specifically, I remember very vividly, Nisha, there was a moment where I stopped. I actually truly like listened to him and I wasn't trying to fix him. And then our
Wow.
relationship kind of shifted so tremendously after that. And this is really interesting because okay, maybe I can connect this to the other thing I was going to ask you about. As I was listening to you speak, I could hear people listening to us wondering, isn't that just like hmm, if I stop trying to fix my mom, who's trying to fix me, what is the difference between navigating that tension skillfully and falling into like condoning
Hmm.
potentially an abusive or maybe not even abusive, but like mm, problematic pattern?
Sure. That's such a good question.
Mm,
I think the difference is choice.
mm,
Like, okay, my mom is like this. I'm not going to fix it, but I might make a boundary.
mm,
I might say, I'm leaving this conversation. I might say, okay, you do you, and I'm going to do me. Like, I need to hang up right now. So I think condoning it is continuing to fall into almost like an interesting codependency of sorts,
mm,
where you feel like you don't have choices. And I think what this work does in terms of relating and not trying to change the other person is it actually makes more space for connecting with yourself. And then you can actually have the choice for what you want to do. And I did start doing that with my mom. She would say things, and I said, okay, the next time you say anything like that, like, I'm going to change the subject or I'm going to hang up.
mm,
And I had to follow through on that too. So part of it's boundary making. I think part of it's just saying, like, okay, that's cool. And I disagree,
mm,
you know? I disagree, and I'm not going to follow that. And you can keep thinking that, and I'm not going to do this X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. And it can also, and this doesn't necessarily have to be them giving you a directive, right? It can also just be that's something they believe and say, okay, I understand you believe that, and this is what I believe, and this is why.
mm.
And you both can have your truths.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think a lot of it is also, is that something you're willing to even do? Like, it, it can be that, but then I also think that it makes space for saying, like, okay, let me genuinely try to understand where you're coming from, because it's coming
Mm,
from a place, right? It's
mhm.
not like you're just terrible.
Right.
Um, so that gives space to ask questions to clarify what they mean, to make sure that you're getting everything. And I notice when I do that, I find out way more about my mom, and that actually gives me compassion for her and for how she thinks, and it helps me. I There's a lot of things that I've assumed about my mom, like, oh, she's just doing this because of X, she's just doing this because of Y, that when I've taken the time, and I have the capacity to, like, sometimes I don't have the capacity. When I have the capacity to ask her more questions and get more clarifications, I learn something totally different. And that's why I
Mm,
say, even in some of your closest relationships, there can be judgments you're making that are untrue about the other
right.
person, and they're actually just supporting your story and your superiority in that story. Um, so yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you said about choice is really powerful because when we remember that we have choice, our relationship to the pattern is already shifting, you know,
Yes.
right? We're no longer kind of unconsciously stuck, twisted inside the pattern. And then, when we're in that stuck place with the pattern, in some ways we become the pattern, like we merge with the pattern, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, like, is it my trauma response or is it my personality?
Hmm.
And how you become,
Yeah.
when people are like, people say her people pleasing is my personality. I'm like, is it though? Like, or is it just something you've needed to do to survive, or you were conditioned to do, and that
Yeah.
you don't have to actually do?
Right.
That doesn't mean you can't be a kind person, but you could be kind and say no.
Yeah.
Like, those two things can absolutely exist.
Yes.
So, yeah. And I mean, part of, and I think also makes me think about accountability.
Hmm.
We Actually, one thing that James Olivia said to me once that bothered me, but is true, is that you can't hold anyone accountable, but you can give consequences. People have to take accountability. So the consequence can be like, I'm not going to, that's cool, you could think that way, and I'm not going to speak with you anymore, or I'm, whatever it is, it could
Yeah.
be total disconnection. It could be like, I'm not going to be able to hang out with you as much.
Yeah.
Um, and that's like a belief in your truth. So I think those consequences matter. That doesn't mean that they're going to take accountability, but it does mean that you are going to give a consequence that makes sense for your congruence, your truth.
Hmm.
And I think that is, like, so liberating, and it's relational. People being relational isn't mean being in a relationship with everyone and, like, everything being, like, perfect and, like, holding hands and dancing in a circle. It's also saying, like, no, I don't want a part of this, and that's what's true for me now. It's messy. It's very messy. But it's real.
Yes.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Can you speak to what are your thoughts about dissolving cultural ideas about loyalty, Nisha? Because I know you mentioned, being South Asian, and as someone who's Southeast Asian, I feel like a, what I'm seeing as kind of holding up this pattern of not really practicing having boundaries as an
Hmm.
adult child with our adult parent, is this idea, right, that we're supposed to be like loyal,
Yeah.
loyal to the tribe, loyal to the family, right? How do you think about that and how do you work with that?
Yeah, it's that idea of, like, the filial piety, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And yeah, I mean, there's, like, parts of, like, Hinduism. I remember, I forget what this was called. I learned it when I was so young, but it was like, tell the truth, do your duty, respect your parents, and sometimes it's obey your parents, or, like, which one
Mm-hmm.
is it? So
Mm-hmm.
I do get curious about how things are translated, but I also think it's really important to think of context. There was a time where, like, being loyal was like a life or death situation, you know? And I think those times have changed. If I'm not loyal to my mom or my parents or my what my culture says is correct, I'm not going to die. Where that was very much a possibility, like, or if, like, we didn't have food, like, you better we got to stick together and help each other out. And I don't think it's that way anymore, for a lot of people.
Mm.
But yeah, and I'm as a Virgo, where I think a quality of a Virgo is loyalty. Yeah, it's definitely one I feel challenged with, and I don't think loyalty comes without honesty with ourselves. I
Yeah.
think that there might be an assumption that being loyal means you have to lie to others about where you're at. You know, I think there's conversations like, I want to show up for you and I want to stand by you, and this is how I feel.
Yeah.
And I think there's, like I said, there's times where that honesty could come at a very high cost. Um, and if that's the case for some people in their current situation, I'm not saying that now that we live in the world we live in, like no one feels that way. The people do. That's why people pleasing is a relational threat. It's a relational threat response. Because
Yeah.
I always give this example, like if someone comes to rob my house and I say, "Oh, take everything you want," like don't, it's not like because I want them to do that. It's because I
Yeah.
don't want to die. I don't want them to hurt
Right.
me. So
Right.
that is like a valid people pleasing, fawning, like that's a valid response. And then we get it overgeneralized into regular situations that don't require it, but in the past it might have.
Mm.
So now if you realize you're not in a situation where your actual safety is under threat, then think about how your honesty could support you while still being in a relationship with the other person.
Mm.
To say that, like, I get that you think this, and I actually really want to show up with you. I want to continue to be in a relationship with you. And what about loyalty to myself?
Mm.
Because loyalty, when constantly means abandoning yourself, like loyal for who?
Right. Right. Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is investigating the definition
Yes. Mm-hmm.
of loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
because I think as we're speaking and as I'm hearing you speak, what I'm becoming aware of is a lot of people, maybe especially of the older generation, when they talk about loyalty, there can be this conflation between like a nervous system discomfort of like a tension that's happening in the room versus someone, or is there an actual threat is the question that I'm starting to ask here,
Yeah.
or is it simply that like, is this just a disagreement,
Yeah.
you know? And what do we make the disagreement mean,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. What do we make the disagreement mean? Absolutely. Yeah. And I always bring up this book, the Politics of Trauma by
Mm.
Stacey K. Haynes, and she talks about how our needs are safety, dignity, and belonging. So
Mm.
the guilt we feel by supposedly betraying or like not being loyal or, putting boundaries with, especially family, might feel like I don't no longer belong to my family.
Mm.
But I ask, how can you actually still belong while making your own choices and having your own agency?
Right.
Um, and also respecting that the people who raised you or whoever else in your communities also have their own agency. And that might impact your relationship.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a fear. And I think the person or system or society that's saying like you need to be loyal, I think they're also afraid, you know?
Mm.
They're afraid of losing belonging with you,
Right.
because they might have their own needs that are unmet, and that's how they're trying to meet those needs. Like, what's the strategy that they're using?
Yeah.
Is it potentially one that's being weaponized without them realizing it? Or is it something that's actually necessary in the moment?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that people actually want, well, this is a huge generalization and this is a big question, but do you think people actually want intimacy with their parents, Nisha?
I think it depends.
Uh-huh.
I think I think as human beings we want connection with
Mm.
uh, in some form, right? Um, yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
um, I think this actually makes me think about my dad, who's passed away for, I mean, almost 14 years, 13, almost, it'll be 14 years this year.
Mm.
And my dad was very emotionally repressed, very quiet. I never would have, I don't think I ever could have had a certain intimacy with him because he wasn't as open. Like my mom is at least open emotionally. She likes to talk about stuff, even if it's not always what I want to hear. She's very open, right? Like my dad was very closed off,
Yeah.
but I feel like I've created an intimacy with him now. And,
Mm.
I feel very close with him.
Mm.
And maybe it's a story I've made up, but I'm okay with that. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think it's where you're from. So I do think that I get curious, like biologically, I think, okay, I'll say this. I think biologically we want to belong.
Mm.
And I think intimacy is a way to make that happen,
Mhm.
you know? Um, but I think it's okay if, also, I think it's okay for you to not want that.
Yeah.
I think when there's like a lot of abuse or just a lot of connection or a lot of misunderstanding, I don't think it's a should. I think
Right.
it has to be a want, you know?
Right.
And there might be a lot of space or something you need to get to that want, and maybe you'll never want. And I want to make space for the fact that that's okay.
Mm.
Because I think we can really guilt and shame ourselves, especially when it comes to family, for not wanting connection. And honestly, this workshop isn't to force intimacy,
Yeah.
it's to actually explore that as you navigate that tension, if it is intimacy that you want,
Right.
because maybe it is not.
Right.
So
Yeah.
connecting with intimacy is a choice.
Wow. Yeah. Earlier you mentioned like biology and the connection of that to belonging. And I also think about I don't think the two are opposing each other, but I do think that biology also wants evolution. And
Yes.
sometimes those two needs in certain contexts and with certain family systems are incompatible.
Yeah, and I think if they're also incompatible, that's impacted by the system, the extractive systems we live in.
Right.
Because I actually wonder how much more loyal I would desire to be if we were in more community centered systems, less hyper individualistic systems,
Right.
you know? And so we're
Less
also
supremacist culture too.
yes, exactly. So we're navigating not just the tension in our relationship, the tension we have in systems that we actually don't have a choice to be but to be a
Mm.
part of.
Hmm.
I can't I cannot go anywhere in this world and escape capitalism. I cannot go pretty much anywhere in this world and escape patriarchy. I mean, even if I might be living among a matriarchal culture, I still have my history of patriarchy and how
Mm.
I've internalized it, right? So,
Right.
we are also navigating those tensions, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Mm.
And I think that, yeah, I think that really speaks to what you were saying, in that, yeah, I honestly, right now, I'm trying to remember exactly what you said.
Yeah.
I'm like,
We
wait,
we were
speak,
talking about
just
like
speak to it. Yeah,
biology,
biology, yes.
evolution,
Oh,
and
the evolution,
belonging.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we look at evolution, I also look at the evolution of these systems and how they've extracted from us, right?
Mm.
Like, and so we're in tension with that evolution as well. So evolution is not like neutral, right?
Yeah.
Evolution has a political, social, economic context. And for better or worse. I mean, I like the conveniences of my life. I tell you, I really do. And I also see how the conveniences of life absolutely disconnect us from each
Mm.
other.
Yeah.
So how do I navigate that? It
Mm.
was funny. I was actually just at my mom's yesterday. My brother's here too because we have a family reunion coming up. So I just gone for the day to help. And my brother was on his phone and at one point. I was too. My mom's like, "Okay, we have stuff to do. please get off your phone. Like we're grown adults in our 40s, right? She's like, or I might take your phone away. And my brother goes, fair enough, you know? And I'm like, I'm like, it's true. We are disconnecting from the things that we're trying to help her with by being on our
Right.
phones. And I also was like, yeah, I mean, guilty. I mean, I was also, you know, fabricated in that situation. So, um, yeah, it's like this tool is disconnecting me, and it's disconnecting me from a dynamic between my brother and my mom and I that can be challenging. So yeah, my brother and
Mm.
I both do participate in that.
Yeah.
And we did have we had these things to do to help my mom clean up before all these people come to our house, you know? And
Right.
that's kind of what I talk about the everyday. Like this is the everyday stuff that's happening.
Mm.
Like that is an actual situation that matters. And he put his phone away, I put my phone away, and we got stuff done, you know,
Yeah.
because we were talking, and that doesn't mean there weren't miscommunications or whatever there were, but it would have been way worse if we were completely disconnected because we wouldn't really, literally wouldn't be listening to each other, right?
Right.
So we are really navigating this evolution of technology with our relational dynamic and then thinking about what choices am I going to make here. So, yeah, I think with evolution, then there's just our own relational evolution and how
Hmm.
we try to resist those systems in our interpersonal dynamics that to navigate codependence and interdependence, you know? So
Yeah.
it's again, it's messy.
Yeah. 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 I was thinking specifically actually about when I said evolution, in my mind, I thought about like how the ancestral line itself or like the lineage is seeking to evolve. Like, for example,
Ooh.
you know, I don't know how much were you pretty much raised in the US,
Yeah, I
Nisha?
was born and raised in the
You
US,
were
yes.
born and raised in the US. Yeah, I wasn't. I came here
Mhm.
when I was 17, right? And I thought a lot about like what it means for my at different points in the family line, right? But basically like my dad's family, most of them kind of came from China to Indonesia.
Mhm.
One way or another, they settled there. My mom's family too, right?
Mhm.
Eh, They all have different timelines about it, but what it means for me to be part of that family line who then wants to be in the US. Like, what am I teaching my family line?
Uh-huh.
Like, how am I evolving my family line through being in a
Yeah.
hyper individualist
Yeah.
culture in late stage capitalism, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's saying something about what the because maybe the others are not making that choice, but that
Mhm.
choice is being made through me, right?
Mhm.
And there must be a reason why, because I am part of that. Like regardless of whether, however people in my family line thinks about me and however they feel about me, I am there. I'm part of that family line. So like the evolution is
Mhm.
happening no matter whether you give permission to it or not.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And it's like, is it even up to me, Nisha? I mean, this is something that I think about a lot because it's like
Yeah.
from an animist perspective, like we're
Mm.
all just vessels, right? And there is kind of this like energy or like spirit moving through us that drives us towards making certain decision. And sometimes in order to pursue a specific strand of evolution, you must leave the customs,
Ah, yes. Yeah.
you know?
I'm hearing intergenerational healing in what you're saying. Um, yeah. What do you make of it?
I don't know, Nisha. This is really interesting because I see the both endness of it all
Mhm.
because my mom was second generation Christian in the
Mhm.
family line. My dad is first generation Christian. I grew up in church and I wouldn't call myself exclusively a Christian now.
Sure.
I feel like that's one pathway, but I don't really like put myself in that narrow path anymore, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
in fact, in the last few years, I've had somewhat heated discussions with my mom about my deep resonance and exploration of Buddhism and Taoism.
Mhm.
And she was always like, why don't you just go to church, basically?
Yeah.
Like, why are you leaving the church, And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I keep thinking about it because something in her question provoked me. And I realized, no, wait, if you look further at our family line,
Yeah.
they were the outliers, just
Yeah.
as I am the outlier wanting to live here.
Yeah.
But actually, in terms of maybe like that belief system or that relationship to, yeah, that cosmological relationship, I feel like maybe what I'm exploring now is much closer to how our lineage has been exploring it for generations.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm assuming this, but that is part of your lineage, the Buddhism and
Yes.
Taoism, right? So,
Yes.
so it's interesting because what you had said was like part of it's leaving the customs, but it's also kind of
Yes.
returning to it
Yeah.
ancestrally. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I have a lot of I always liked the like Mahabharata, the Hindu epics, and I grew up Hindu. And I, as a teenager and in college, I was like really into that, and I still like have those things in my head, though I stopped studying them, and I always like kind of wanted to get back to it, and I just never did. Though I feel like a lot of my beliefs do align,
Mm.
um, but I actually kind of want to return to it from a more like a goddess-based lens, like a more feminist lens, because I think that there's a lot of power there.
Yeah.
And even reclaim some of the stories where women were dehumanized, because that it's very possible that was also created under a patriarchal. The stories themselves were created by a patriarchal structure. So I'm seeing it as a returning and a reclaiming, Um, and it makes me also think like now that we know what we know, and we have all this information at our fingertips, how is that and then the knowledge of evolution itself helping us return and reclaim and explore now that we have like more, I don't know, touch points,
Mm.
to connect with it. Um, yeah, it's such a rich and almost unknowable topic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. I kind of want to take a left turn, Nisha, if that's okay. I
Yeah.
had this idea of, mm, and I'm curious how you feel about this. Do you think it would be fun if I have you put on your coach hat and then I'll give you like a scenario of what someone might say
Okay.
about what they're exploring in their family
Mm-hmm.
situation? How does that
Mm-hmm.
sound?
Oh, let's do it. I love it.
Okay. I came up with a couple of scenarios here. One was, okay, this person says, I'm a great communicator, but when it comes to communicating with my mom, I can't seem to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't seem to tell her candidly about how I'm feeling.
Mm-mm.
Maybe I don't know how to be kind, or I don't know how to say it in a way that feels appropriate to our
Right.
relationship. What do you think is
Yeah.
happening here, and what would you say to this person?
Yeah. So I think that what's happening here is that there's a possible manipulation
Hmm.
happening. Like
Hmm.
I want to say this thing in a way to get what I want potentially. And so I would kind of dig into that. I would actually first ask them when they want to communicate or feel resistance in communicating it because they feel like they won't be understood, like what do they feel in their body? And like
Hmm.
really connect with that part of their body to see what that part is protecting them from.
Hmm.
So that's something I would do to see like
Yeah.
how old is that part?
Yeah.
How much does this sensation, what story does it have to tell?
Hmm.
Because part of it's like the resistance in communicating it. And part of it is then I would ask, what are you trying to communicate with them?
Hmm.
And then dig into where does that come from?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
what's the history with this?
Hmm.
Um, that's where I would start.
That's really juicy. Yeah. So what I'm hearing
Yeah.
from you is really looking at the motivation.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
when you say manipulation, am I hearing you correctly that like this could be an old kind of survival mechanism
Yeah,
of some sort?
yeah, and it's so innocent because I think we all manipulate in ways that we don't realize is manipulation.
True.
It's the, well, I don't want to say it this way because I don't want to make them feel like this. So I'm going to say it this other way
Mm.
so I can make them feel another way. It's like, well, that's still manipulating in some way, you know? Um, and I've done it. We've all done it, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Um, and even people pleasing itself is a manipulation. 'Cause I'm
Mm.
actually not really being honest with you about what my truth is.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, I'm taking into account like what you had said before about like discerning people pleasing and stuff, but just generally I'm speaking more like if I'm agreeing to something that I don't want to, or I'm saying, yeah, I like that, but I don't like it.
Mm.
Um, that you're actually telling someone you like something you don't, and then they believe you. And then
Mm.
that is a form of manipulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's innocent, but it's not. Because it is actually it's not helping anybody, unless, like I said, it is for actual survival, then it's helping you survive. It
Yeah.
might help you think that you're surviving, but eventually most people who come to me are like tired and exhausted because that's what they've been doing. And abandoning yourself is exhausting because you're not connecting to yourself,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel like understanding that pattern within ourselves of wanting to manipulate? How does that then start to undo the pattern itself?
Yeah. I think being honest with ourselves is one of the most powerful things we can do.
Mm.
Um, I feel that in my marriage, I was so good. I entered the marriage really at a time in my 20s where I was really trying to understand what is my passion, especially when
Mm.
there was so much language and like the zeitgeist at that time about like follow your passion, like
Yeah.
what's your passion? So I
Yeah.
thought I had to have a passion.
Yeah.
And so I was really kind of trying to figure it out. I was starting to like get into like the more social justicey types of things, like reading things, and then I met my ex-husband. And he literally told me, "You have no strong interests. Your friends suck." I mean, it's like abuser 101. And
Mm.
so what did I do? I started liking everything he liked. And the thing is,
Mm.
it's not that I disliked them. I'm a very open person. I like to learn new things. So he loved Chicago sports. I got really into Chicago sports. I always liked sports. I didn't hate sports. I watched sports. I grew up in Chicago in the 90s, like the Bulls. Like obviously I watched sports. But I didn't like it to that degree. I didn't want to spend all my time doing that. And what I realized in our relationship, and this was through the help of Al Anon, which, for those who aren't familiar with Al Anon, is a 12-step program for people you love who might be addicts or alcoholics. And my ex-husband, he got sober and he went to AA, and then he relapsed. And when he relapsed, I actually reminded myself when I made my journey for like to stop being codependent and to heal my codependency started with Al Anon because it was basically my codependency, like you're codependent on the alcoholic essentially. And there's this concept that I learned in Al-Anon called detach with love, that I can
Mm.
love you and I could still detach and not do things. So when he relapsed, all the things that I would always used to do, like go to all of his nephew's baseball games, do all these things, I realized I want to be home and write. I want to be home and like read. And so I stopped doing those things. And when I stopped doing those things, I was like, oh, this is actually what I like. And this is how I like to connect with myself.
Yeah.
So when I stopped people pleasing, I was like, well, what do I like? And then when you start realizing what you actually like, you start liking yourself.
Right.
And then
Right.
that just creates that self connection. And
Yeah.
then it's like, it's hard to go back from that, you know?
Hmm.
I can't, I
Hmm.
mean, I have people please since then. It's not that, but I'm much more conscious and aware of it and say, okay, well, I know what that felt like in my body. And I
Mm.
know that was in the past trying to tell me you need to agree, but I don't agree. And I'm in a situation where maybe this person might not like me as much, but that's not going to kill me,
Mm.
because I like me and I have people who I really am aligned with. And also, how am I potentially doing this person a disservice by not engaging in an open discussion? Like I don't have to be like oppositional and like um aggressive, you know. I could just be like, "Well, I don't know if I agree." And but I'm happy to chat with you about that, you know.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, that's my story in response to your question.
Yeah. So good. So good. Okay, there's another scenario I want to give to you, which is in one of your emails you wrote about mothering your mom.
Hmm.
And I'm curious what you would say to someone who is aware that they're doing that, but they can't seem to stop themselves from doing it.
Yeah. So I actually learned about this from a coach who no longer is a coach, but she has a really great podcast. But she shifted away from coaching, but she really helped me understand that when we're trying to tell our moms or parents what or whoever what to do, especially if it's a parent-child dynamic, if I start mothering my mom, she actually responds to me by saying like, "You need to do this. Like, why do you talk to me like this? Stop talking to me like this, whatever." We think we're defending ourselves and we are, but we're actually telling them what to do. So you become their parent because a parent is
Mm,
usually guiding you, right? Or telling you
mhm,
what to do.
right.
And so then my mom, therefore, responds for her from her childhood trauma responses. That concept blew my mind open
It just blew my mind.
because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh
Yeah.
shit, I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Like,
Yeah.
I just thought I'm standing up for myself and saying stop. And I am, right? Like I'm glad that a lot of my life, I mean, I've always been vocal with my mom. I mean, I people pleased because I was exhausted. And you know, when I was young, I did it was kind of survival. Like I couldn't leave the house. Like I wasn't going to survive on my own out there, you know. But there was also the part of me that was like, no, like why? Like you need to stop doing this. Like stop, you know, you worry too much. You're so, you know, whatever. I would do that. But
Mm,
then she would respond with her anxieties and more control. And I mean, as a child, there was no way I was going to know this. But then I became an adult and continued that because that's the only thing I knew. And then I'm like, I'm not trying to deal with my mom's childhood trauma responses. That's not my job. I'm the child's. I need to say, I need help with this
mm,
and put her in a mother position because that is the dynamic. Like, no,
right.
she doesn't have to coddle me, but I can say, this is how I feel and it hurt me. Can you understand that you hurt me? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And like when you tell me what to do, I feel this way. Can you understand that?
Yeah.
Instead of like, so you therefore you need to do this, you know?
Mm,
So that's what I would say. Like, are you trying to deal with your parents' childhood or trauma responses? Because if not, then you have to find another way, you know, and that might
yes.
be just creating a boundary, you know. But then I also learned to just say this is what hurts me. Do you understand? And like adamantly just keep saying, but do you understand? Do you understand how I feel?
Mm,
Because once they can understand how you feel, then I've noticed when I've done that. I mean, there's you know I need to practice a little more, I think, with her. But whenever I have done that, she'll be like, okay, I understand. I'm sorry. And I'm
mm,
not saying every parent's going to do that. I'm not saying
yeah.
this is like a perfect catch all for everybody. But I do think that me not mothering her 10 out of 10 has helped me, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's also a skill, right? To be able to express your feelings
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
candidly to someone who maybe in your mind, based on your histories, your shared histories together, you feel like they won't be able to listen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Mhm.
really is a skill and I've had to practice it a lot and I continue to have to practice it. This is not like I got it. I'm done. You know, this is like
Yeah.
lifelong. So, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful. I'm grateful because I've had conversations and connections with my mom since I've done this that I've never had in my life and I never
Mm,
thought was possible. I also didn't believe in her potential, but I was like, oh, okay, you know, um,
yeah.
it opened up a lot. Yeah.
Mm, mhm. Cool. Wow. This has been amazing, Nisha. I want to encourage everybody listening to sign up for your workshop. Yeah, is there anything you want to share about that?
Yeah. Um, There are limited spots. We have three out of the eight spots filled, and I know a couple people told me they're interested. So not to
Mm.
create urgency, but more to just give information. Um, I'll give Jonathan the link so you could sign up. And yeah, I'm really excited. It's 4.5 hours. So it's like definitely like more of an intensive situation. And one of the most beautiful things about doing this in a group is actually witnessing the other people
Mm.
move through it. It
Mhm.
opens up so much for you and your relationships, and also like compassion for other people, which I mean, there's
Mm.
just such a reciprocity in that, like a feedback loop, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super excited. I loved this conversation as I always do with you, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Nisha. You're brilliant. And I I want to say I'm very mm, I really admire the courage and your willingness to like talk about like these subjects are sticky, you know?
Yeah.
These subjects are really sticky and they're dear and personal and um right before we recorded, you and I were chit-chatting, gossiping about how I feel like relationship with like mother-child relationship and
Hmm.
creativity, which in some ways is also a mother-child relationship, right? When we talk
Hmm.
about having like creating something, whether that be your memoir or a music album, like that is your parenting
Yeah.
creative idea. And I think that relationship is so intimate and it's so deep and everybody recognizes like, yeah, I want to work more on that, but it's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy, and I think
It's
for
not
a lot of
easy.
people it brings up so much stuff and yeah, it's so yeah, you're doing such incredible work and I love hearing your stories and your perspective on this. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.